people think that Bitcoin has gotten too expensive. And I say expensive compared to what? It's certainly expensive to where it was a few months ago at 50 or 60,000, but it's so cheap compared to where it will be in a year or in 5 years from now. I would say maybe within a year, certainly within 24 months, the banks will be custodying Bitcoin and potentially even selling Bitcoin. We're talking about institutional FOMO, and we're talking about sovereign nation state FOMO coming in. We're setting up for fireworks here.
In the next 12 to 24 months, Bitcoin's price is expected to soar as institutional and nation-state FOMO accelerates adoption to unprecedented levels. Market analyst and entrepreneur Mark Moss predicts that while Bitcoin's current price may seem high to new investors, it's still undervalued compared to its potential. Moss foresees banks adopting Bitcoin for transactions and custody services, with large corporations, institutional investors, and even entire countries joining the adoption wave. Donald Trump's presidency could further expedite this global shift. Known for his favorable stance on Bitcoin, Trump has suggested creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve for the United States, which would enhance financial independence, boost economic stability, and solidify the U.S. as a leader in the digital economy. If implemented, this policy could set off a domino effect, prompting other countries to follow suit. As the U.S. moves toward broader Bitcoin adoption, the resulting momentum could push Bitcoin's price to astronomical levels. Mark Moss emphasizes that this is just the beginning of Bitcoin's rise, offering early adopters an unprecedented opportunity as the world transitions to a digital economy.
Hi guys, hope to see you guys at Dubai Token 2049. We have exclusive 10% off the limited super early bird tickets. Click the link below. This pass will grant you access to speaking sessions, networking app, exhibition hall, daily networking drinks, and also included breakfast, lunch, and coffee breaks, all included the package. I love to see everyone there. Peace out.
People were disappointed in the price of Bitcoin because it was basically stuck in a range for like 6 months. There's a lot to say about that. One thing I would recommend, I constantly try to remind people of is, so this was, August, September-ish, right? Before the price really started moving, is I said, look, it hasn't gone anywhere in 6 months, but it's up 150% in 12 months. Like, that's pretty dang good. Like, from a macro investor like me who's been doing this for a really long time, 100%, 150% in 12 months is amazing. And so, number one, zoom out, man. Like, if you're expecting your assets to move inside of 6 months, like, you're just never going to make it. Another reason why they were getting disillusioned is because we saw the assets starting to pump. So the stock market was still holding up. Gold was taking off, making new all-time highs. We saw global liquidity going up, but yet Bitcoin wasn't moving. And typically Bitcoin is like this most sensitive asset. And a lot of times it starts to front run. It's like this canary in the coal mine, if you will. But Bitcoin was lagging the liquidity and the gold moves. And I made some videos and kind of broke down some charts and showed that there's, up to about a 6-month delay. And I think that's where we're at, right? Bitcoin caught up. It made its big move. It was a little bit behind the curve a little bit. And here we are. Yeah, we're blasting off. The gold demand is not because you and I are buying more gold jewelry, buying gold ounces for our safes. It is nation state demand. And really, that was a big driver of gold. And yes, to your point, it's going to be a massive driver for Bitcoin. I think I made an off the cuff video that went pretty viral, just saying, like, people are not bullish enough. I don't think the market has front run this, and that was like a week or two ago. But I do think the market is now catching up to this reality that we started to see this like institutional FOMO, if you will, back in 2021. And it's been going, and we are seeing the institutions starting to FOMO in. The problem is it takes a long time for the institutions to move, to change their fund mandates or the legal compliance, things like that. There's reasons why institutions can't move in because there hasn't been a functioning options market and things like that. But now we're starting to see this sovereign FOMO. And the key to what I was saying, why people aren't bullish enough, and I think they're just catching on, is because what we saw with El Salvador being one of the poorest countries in the world, when they adopted Bitcoin, it wasn't like they were influencing a lot of nations. Like, nobody's really paying attention to that. But what's happened in El Salvador since, right, turning their country around, taking care of crime, massive amounts of influx of investment capital coming in. And now at Bitcoin, when Bitcoin hits $100,000, El Salvador is able to pay off their IMF debt. It's never been done before. That doesn't happen. The IMF debts are strategically made in a way to keep those nations enslaved forever. And when they can't pay the debt, they just add more debt to pay the old debt. And so to pay off the IMF debt is insane. And now again, they're not influencing the world, but they are influencing other small countries. So now Bukele has been meeting with other heads of small nations, Omar, Sudan, UAE, etc., and they're starting to move on Bitcoin. So we're seeing that. That's like the bottom-up approach. But if the United States, the global homogeneity, the US dollar, the reserve currency of the world, if they were to take on a strategic Bitcoin reserve, then every other nation is forced to do so. It's the way that game theory plays out. So in the world of investing, just like most of the world, it's competitive. And if a fund were to add a little bit of Bitcoin and outperform the other funds are forced to respond to that, which is what we're seeing in the institutional FOMO. But if the US does it, every other nation is forced to. We're talking G7 nations, G20 nations. I believe these other nations have figured this out. They didn't know what was going to happen on the election, because obviously if Kamala won, that was not going to happen. But with Trump and RFK Jr. both running on this policy and a bill already submitted in and having a red wave through both the House and the Senate and the presidency, the likelihood of this going through is extremely high, in my opinion. And the other nation states are starting to realize this. And word on the street is these nations are now FOMO.
Bitcoin is rapidly entering the mainstream, and Matt Hang, CEO of Paradigm, warns that nations can no longer afford to remain on the sidelines. In a recent blog post, he compared Bitcoin to revolutionary technologies like gunpowder. Once discovered, nations must either adopt it or risk falling behind. El Salvador has already embraced Bitcoin as a central part of its economy, and Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund is actively mining it. Meanwhile, in the US, former President Donald Trump has proposed creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve, with Senator Cynthia Lummis introducing the Bitcoin Act to make this a reality. Hang highlights that early adopters of Bitcoin will secure the best prices and gain a significant strategic advantage as other major nations follow suit. With over 30% of experts predicting the US will establish a Bitcoin reserve, the idea is gaining traction. If this happens, it could trigger a global chain reaction, integrating Bitcoin into government financial strategies worldwide. What are your thoughts on this development? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's turn it back to Mark Moss for more insights on Bitcoin's future.
We're going to see a domino effect. And this is the beauty of the United States. The United States is not a democracy. Let's get that clear. We are a constitutional republic. And the key to this is really it's a decentralized form of government, right? So all 50 states are supposed to be independent. But the beauty of this is that it allows us to then try and test different things. And so we see these experiments playing out in real time, and this is one of those experiments. So we've seen already multiple states have passed laws to, for example, enshrine rights to mine Bitcoin. So as like New York has tried to be aggressive and ban Bitcoin mining, other states like Montana have said, no, you have a right to mine Bitcoin in Montana. Other states now have put other bills in place that guarantee your right to custody Bitcoin. And now the Pennsylvania one is now the potentially to put Bitcoin on the reserve balance of the state. And so certainly we're seeing this play out in multiple states in different ways. And if it works really well for Pennsylvania, like we hope it certainly does, then of course it's going to influence, back to that game theory, it will start to influence what the other states do. And it'll be highly contagious. Now, my guess, the red states probably go with that because they like to have a balanced budget and have a surplus. And the blue states probably continue to wreck themselves. But that's another topic. But I certainly do think this is the start of something really big. I think it's going to happen at the federal level. I mean, let's just talk about it at the federal level for a second. So, number one, RFK ran on this platform and laid out a very detailed plan of exactly how he wanted to do it. He didn't win the presidency, but he folded in with Trump, who also ran on about the same platform. So we have two people who see eye to eye that are now together that want to do this. But more importantly, Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming has already submitted the bill. Like, it's already going through the House. And we know that with a red House and Senate, and then obviously with Trump in presidency, it has a high chance of going through and getting signed. And even if it were to fail, we'll probably get another one that will go through. They're saying originally Senator Lummis said that she wanted to get it through within 100 days of Trump taking the presidency. Now they're saying it needs to go through even faster, potentially up to 30 days after. And I think it's going to happen on a federal level. And then every state will probably just move right into it. Right now, we have about 325,000 Bitcoin per year get created. Okay. Now we have the US saying they would buy up to 200,000. We have Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy said that they plan to buy 42 billion over the next 3 years. Now, we don't know what the price will be in 2 or 3 years from now, but let's just take it at face value where we're at today. That means that Michael Saylor buying 42 billion just at today's current price is about 175,000 Bitcoin per year. So over half of the supply. Then you add in another 200,000 from the US. Now you're looking at more than all Bitcoin being created. Now, what's interesting about this is that Michael Saylor has proven that he is not a cost-based buyer, meaning he just buys on regular intervals, whatever the price is. But, the other thing is nation states are also not cost sensitive buyers. Nation states, when they buy, they just buy. They're not traders. They're not Wall Street funds, right? They're just going to buy. So basically what that means is we have just two buyers, and we're setting up for fireworks here. I think that, we're going to unleash the American economy. We'll have massive efficiency in government spending, which then again would lower regulations and sort of take that boot off the neck. I don't see how that'd be bad for Bitcoin at all. The reality of that is that unleashing the American economy is probably going to be inflationary. So people aren't going to like to hear that. I'm an inflation bull. I think the rest of this decade is highly inflationary for any number of reasons. And this would be one of them. It's going to create more inflation, which will be good for Bitcoin. And people are going to need a way to protect themselves from inflation. And Bitcoin is that. So if anything, I would say it's going to be good for Bitcoin, not bad. Most people think that Trump just lied and didn't get anything done in his first presidency. But here's something that gives me hope. So when he took his first term, he said that for every one new regulation that got passed, he would repeal 2. 1 in, 2 out. Now, when you look back at the results of that, he actually got 2.5 out for every 1 in. So we have some precedents for this. It did work. He did exceed what he had committed to do. And he was under extreme pressure and fight from the government, if you will. And so now with Elon and Vivek, maybe we can get a lot of these regulations pulled back. I'm extremely optimistic about it. But I think there's a couple other things that are involved that are more involved in that situation. So yes, number one, institution FOMO is coming in. Gary Gensler out of the SEC, maybe not. He's definitely been aggressive to crypto. And I know we talk about choke point 2.0, but he hasn't really been that aggressive to Bitcoin necessarily. Specifically, he's been more aggressive on crypto at large. However, for my fund, I have a fund called the Bitcoin Opportunity Fund. And as we raised money, we did have problems from our banks receiving money because Bitcoin was in the name of our fund. So, there was a tax on Bitcoin as well. So I'd say certainly yes. But I think there's bigger things at play with getting these institutions and banks in. So number one, a lot of these institutions, as I said, just take time. So it takes time for them to change their mandates and what they're able to buy. Number two, they can't buy physical, so they need to buy some sort of equity-based Bitcoin. So now we have the options. But what's really held back the big funds from jumping in is that hedge funds like my own and other much bigger ones than me on Wall Street, they will never take a position that doesn't have a predefined downside. Hence the name hedge fund. Everything is hedged, and so without a liquid functioning options market, these big funds have not been able to come into Bitcoin at size. They're not going to come in and put billions of dollars in without being able to hedge that. And so now launching this Bitcoin options, I think, is going to allow these big funds to come in. Now, back to the SEC specifically, here's my prediction. I would say maybe within a year, certainly within 24 months, the banks will be custodying Bitcoin and potentially even selling Bitcoin, and which is going to put a lot of Bitcoin companies, the Coinbases and the Geminis and the Swans in some jeopardy. Banking is very sticky, and the banks understand this, and they're not happy seeing all their customers leaving to go to these Bitcoin banks, and so they want to offer Bitcoin. Now, they tried to overturn the rule that would allow them to custody the asset, and it got all the way, I believe, to Biden's desk and got vetoed. And that changes. I believe that as soon as we get the new administration in, that gets resubmitted, that gets overturned, and they're putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I think then we'll see, like I said, them probably selling Bitcoin. I think we'll see Bitcoin loan products popping up, and all of that probably within the next 2 years.
Mark Moss is confident that Bitcoin adoption will continue to expand, starting from state to state and ultimately reshaping the entire financial system. With states like Pennsylvania already taking action and federal support growing, the domino effect is well underway. As institutional and national FOMO intensifies and Bitcoin's supply remains fixed, explosive growth seems inevitable in the coming years. The Bitcoin revolution is not just a future prospect, it's already happening. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.